Вітаю нашого вімолі, я полкового знамена, дивлюсь на нього я востаннє, у нез'ясованій журбі, всю кров мою всі скидання, воно вібрало у собі.
Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там вбивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар. Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Байрактар.
Yes.
The Leaf Street Army sends its regards.
Ще не вмерла України ні слава, ні воля. Ще нам, браття українці, усміхнеться доля. Згинуть наші вороженьки, як роса на сонці. Запануємо ми, браття, у своїй сторонці, душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду. Душу й тіло ми положим за нашу свободу і покажем, що ми браття козацького роду.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer. I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, everybody. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 243 of the news. And tonight, we do have Operator Starsky in the building once again.
And of course, and we got Operator Starsky in here. And so, say hey to the crowd, Operator Starsky.
Hey to the crowd. Very nice to see you guys.
All right, and so with that in mind, we will be going over the past 24 hours of news, and of course, we have our normal Sunday night fundraiser. Tonight's Sunday night fundraiser is in request of BC Skyman, who asked us last night if there was a fundraiser that could possibly help out with getting medical supplies to the Ukrainian soldiers or the citizens. The best way we could do that through YouTube Give is through Doctors Without Borders. Doctors Without Borders has been there since the very first day of the war, and all the way back since 2014, providing surgeries and operations to Ukrainian citizens and soldiers that have been wounded due to the conflict, and they've also been providing a massive amount of medical equipment and supplies that are not accompanying their surgeons around the country. And so for that reason, we picked Doctors Without Borders again to be our fundraiser tonight. And of course, make sure to support it as much as you can. Doctors Without Borders is an incredible nonprofit. In fact, it is the fundraiser that we've run the most on this channel. I believe this is about the 6th or 7th fundraiser that we've ever had for Doctors Without Borders, and we're already soaring our way up towards $2,000 and probably going to easily make our way up to $10,000. That, of course, depends on if we have a heavy hitter like Mark or Naria in tonight. So with that, let's move on to the major title and the major information from tonight's news, which doesn't even directly touch Ukraine. It actually dealt with Britain today, and we saw a very odd thing to get disclosed in the daily Ministry of Defense report from the United Kingdom. So real quick, let's read that and let's discuss what this means. So going to the post from Twitter from the Ministry of Defense, we can see here, at the request of the Russian Ministry of Defense, the Secretary of State for Defense spoke with his Russian counterpart Sergei Shoigu this afternoon. Minister Shoigu alleged that Ukraine was planning actions facilitated by Western countries, including the UK, to escalate the conflict in Ukraine. The Defense Secretary refuted these claims and cautioned that such allegations should not be used as a pretext for greater escalation. The Defense Secretary also reiterated UK and wider international support for Ukraine and desire to de-escalate this conflict. It is for Ukraine and Russia to seek resolution to the war, and the UK stands ready to assist. The Secretary of State observed that both ministers were professional and respectful on the call. Now, with this in mind, one very interesting note here, because diplomacy is not straightforward. It always is a little bit nuanced. And by this claim here from the Defense Secretary saying that such allegations should not be used as a pretext for greater escalation shows that the British took what was said on the phone call, and unfortunately we don't have the transcript or the audio from that phone call, but we do have the British response, according to this report, is that they viewed this as a potential, I guess you could say, farce by the Russians to try and escalate this war beyond Ukraine's borders and draw in NATO. Of course, it appears that the UK was not faltering due to that statement. It looks like their support, along with the rest of the West, is still steadfast with Ukraine. Now, real quick, Starsky, what do you take from this?
My take is that people who think that the main goal of Russia was to claim a bunch of Ukrainian territories and that's it, stop there, is not true, because Russians talk about this every time. They talk about Great Russia from Pacific to Atlantic. They talk about, they dream about United States destroyed and Europe destroyed and this Ruski Mir everywhere. So I'm not surprised if they want to escalate this beyond the Ukrainian borders, which they basically do.
Interesting. And I honestly think I'd have to agree with you, because ever since the beginning, before Russia even started the 2022 version, well, that phase of the war, which had pretty much been going on since 2014, Putin had already been making it clear since about 7 years ago that Russia had territorial ambitions beyond Ukraine itself. And of course, it appears that while they're getting absolutely slaughtered by the Ukrainians, their ambitions still have not died down. Putin still sees that they want to take the Baltic states back in parts of Poland and pretty much try and reform some kind of a newer version of the Russian Empire in a way. It's really weird because, and of course, a lot of people debate whether it's Putin trying to revision the Soviet Union or the Russian Empire, but in my opinion, and of course, this is just mine, so I may be wrong, it seems as though he is trying to recreate the Russian Empire, because the Soviet Union did not directly control parts of Poland. Poland and its borders as we see today were formed by the Soviet Union at the very end of World War II to turn it into a puppet state. And so the fact that they're wanting to take parts of Poland shows that Putin may be wanting to recreate the Russian Empire in a way and view himself as a new czar, which is very delusional. And to think that he would be willing to threaten a country like the United Kingdom, which in terms of power in the West is the second largest country behind the United States in terms of its diplomatic sway, and economic sway goes to the Germans. They're pretty much the second largest. It's very odd to see, but of course it's great to know that regardless of what the Russians say, everyone in the world has seen that the Russian Federation, its government, its economy, and its military are completely jokes, and that the West will not sit there and take this seriously whatsoever, and will continue to support Ukraine until the very last day of this war. And so with that, I thought, considering that this is some rather serious news tonight, that it would probably be best to counter it with some funny stuff. And I know, Starsky, that you and me, we love to have a little crack of jokes. You make some really good, funny videos. And I gotta say, I think you're about to be put out of business by the Belarusian Spetsnaz, because they put on their own little comedy act today. I'm not sure if they really wanted to, but here's the video. See them grabbing some sticks? Now, isn't that something, Starsky?
Oh my god, I saw that in Star Wars, I think.
Yeah, and look at this stick right here. Like, what are these made out of? Like, balsa wood? Watch this. Like, he hardly even hit that guy's arm, and it had already went flying. Like, there was no force hardly put behind that. There was no time for it to gain up any speed. It just shattered.
Basically, here you can see this those origins of Russian TikTok videos, because they liked those. So in Russian language, there's this word "показуха," which is like not like demonstration, only in a bad way, and they like to show those, supernatural abilities of Ruski Spetsnaz and stuff. It's a complete trash.
Yeah, it is. And also on top of that, it looks like they just came out of the kids club as well over there on the left side of the screen. So I don't even think they're that strong considering that they're in the little league. So with that, we're going to let the video continue. Also, real quick, I just realized that a lot of y'all were saying this, and so we're going to have to mute the audio moving forward. That is actually the Mortal Kombat theme song from the game. So we're going to mute that.
I thought maybe you were just playing it anyway, but I was like, does he know it's Mortal Kombat?
I didn't know that until people started saying it, and I was like, wow, that's so cheap. And once again, a little bit of irony there. The Belarusians and the Russians say that they hate Western culture and they want to keep it Russian, yet they'll play the theme song from probably one of the most popular mid-90s, early 2000s Mortal Kombat games that was just Western as all hell, and they're playing the song as they show off these stupid stunts.
And I also want to mention that obviously evil America occupied their kids club because it's written in English.
Yeah, that's a great point. And what is this building anyways? It looks like something from like a Men in Black compound with like the weird shape of it and stuff.
some kind of mall when they can buy all kinds of, Western-made goods.
Yeah, just terrible poison for the Belarusian people. And now we can see them doing that. Oh, that's just stupid. They're using that dust. Look, oh, wait a minute, hang on. Look at that. Look at that. Did you see that? His had already shattered before they even picked it up. How stupid.
Where's Steven Seagal when you need him?
I mean, I know. I mean, like, Steven Seagal must have been with these guys at some point because they have about the level of acting that he has. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from that clip and further down towards, I guess you could say, closer to the Ukrainian border, where we saw that some Belarusian soldiers showed Lukashenko how a tourniquet was put on, which may become important in Lukashenko's future. And so here's the video.
На министра будешь? Ну давай там, и это уже одно и двумя руками накладывать. Не сможет его одной рукой. У него нет руки, конечно, не сможет. Вот, и потом...
Wait a minute, hang on. Are they seriously going to tourniquet this man's perfectly fine arm?
Like, what's he doing?
That's what I'm wondering. Like, what is the point of this? Like, even Lukashenko looks confused as to what in the world's going on.
Why is he turning that before, like, wrapping the tourniquet around that? Oh, Jesus Christ.
В общем, ладно. Хлопцы, я вам скажу так, это вы мне показушничаете сейчас, показ, а дальше мы проверим, люди скажут.
Lukashenko is angry. He says, like, we see that you are showing off to me, but we will see what the people will say.
What does that even mean? Like, I don't even know what that would mean. And so with that,
Like,
oh, go ahead.
It means like because they're old army, they use those that Jesus, I forgot how you call it in English. So like that long stuff, like long cord, rubber cord that you gotta wrap around your limb above your wound. They still use that crap that was, I don't know, introduced in the times of the World War One, and жгут in Russian language. So they used to wrap it around their like butt stocks of their rifles and shit, and then this cord gets torn apart because of that. So it's hilarious, but they still believe in this. They still use this. That's why probably Lukashenko thinks that all those modern tourniquets, they suck.
Oh man, that adds a whole lot of context to it. Also, I didn't know that he didn't actually wrap the thing all the way. I guess I may have missed that, or honestly, I probably don't know enough about how a tourniquet really works rather than it cuts off circulation to the rest of your limb. But I got another great question, Starsky. How come they didn't try this out around Lukashenko's neck?
That would be the proper way of using a tourniquet, in my opinion.
That's what I'm thinking. And so with that, we're going to be moving out of the area where
also,
go ahead.
Real quick, Enforcer. Some breaking news here. It sounds like South Korea and North Korea are exchanging warning shots.
Ah, that's normal.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. We'll be getting to that here in a minute because I saw someone say that earlier, and I was actually going to wait for a little bit more news to come around, at least from what I could see on my phone before we reported on it. But that is true. They are currently exchanging warning shots over the border right now in Korea. And so with that, we're now going to be moving further down the front, and we'll probably be taking a quick break here in a bit to cover that news, considering that it's starting to become a little bit more serious. But moving on down towards the Ukrainian border, we've seen that the Ukrainians are starting to anger Lukashenko's goons down there on the border. You see the flag of Belarus. Let me show y'all this real quick. Flag of Belarus. Just in case if y'all don't know what it looks like, the flag of Belarus is this red and green field with, I forgot what this thing is called, Starsky, but maybe you can help me out here. It's this pattern on the left side of the flag.
Like вышиванка.
That is what is on the left side of the flag. Unfortunately, I don't think I could even try to pronounce it, but that is the standard Belarusian flag as of right now. And you can also see the former flag of the Belarusian Soviet Republic. There hasn't really been a lot of change in between this one and that one. But one flag that is completely forbidden in Belarus is this flag right here. This is the flag of the Belarusian Republic, and this is also the flag of the Belarusian volunteers that are currently fighting in Ukraine. Pretty much, they are the complete dissidents and political opposition of Lukashenko's dictatorship and regime that has been in charge of Belarus for decades, and for that reason, they fly this flag instead of the standard Belarusian flag. Now, one thing that's interesting is that Ukrainians have also shown their solidarity for this particular group of Belarusians, which have helped them out heavily over the war, and you can see that version of the Belarusian flag flying over the Ukrainian side of this checkpoint, and you can also see this fine specimen of a Belarusian border guard standing right here, as the Belarusians went and made an entire mini-documentary on what they call an outrageous provocation. And you can see the flag a little bit better right there, and they even censored it on the Belarusian TV. Like, that's just insane. I don't know about y'all, but what do you think, Starsky?
Well, I think that, yeah, we should remind them from time to time about, their origin, their true history. So I cannot say anything bad in that.
And so with that, we're now going to be moving out of the Belarusian news. We actually had a little bit, a decent amount of it today, about 3 pieces, which was pretty interesting. And so with that, we're now going to be moving into Russia and covering a little bit of the news here, and then we'll probably be taking a break to go and try and see what's happening in Korea exactly. So with that, we can see here that the Russians have been caught again on film going into prisons and recruiting the male population of soldiers from the prisons. And so let's check this out, because it looks like they're going to be getting a whole lot more competent and well-trained and very well-organized manpower.
Те, кто пройдут собеседование и после этого решат, что есть сомнения, то не нужно ехать. Нам нужны только те, кто уверен в себе, что он хочет воевать. Ему это нравится, ему это нужно. Его форма позволяет. Если вы подошли к автозеку и передумали, то я вам скажу, что я с уважением к этому отношусь. В этом нет ничего стыдного. Это не трусость, это осознанное решение. Но если вы поехали с нами, обратной дороги уже нет. В зону не вернется никто.
And with that, that's the end of that video. And Starsky, could you key us in on what exactly he was saying in front of that group of prisoners?
So he was saying that they only need men confident enough that they want to go and fight, men who like to fight and stuff like that, because if they agree and then they change their mind, it's better not to go for them. And he respects that decision. And by the way, only today we captured one of the Wagnerites in Bakhmut, and my brigade posted a video of this man, by the way, on our Facebook. The dude was convicted of homicide, and he agreed to come to Ukraine, and he got jailed once again. So it doesn't help much.
It doesn't sound like there was a good ending for that guy right there. Of course, don't want a good ending for any of them. And so with that is the end of that video right there. And y'all can see again that the Russians are now going into the prisons and trying to desperately pull out any manpower that they can find within there. Now, before we continue on with the remainder of the Russian news that we have tonight, we actually have a couple of bits, and all of them are quite interesting to see. We're going to be taking a quick break for some breaking news of the Korean DMZ, as the North Koreans and South Koreans are exchanging fire over the border at this very moment. So with that, we're going to be trying to pull up some news on the second screen real quick. So let me see here. Korea news. And I'm sorry, everyone. Actually, this pretty much evolved right before our stream went live, about 15 minutes beforehand. And so I wasn't able to get a lot of news or information about it. So real quick.
And Enforcer, if you want, this is actually a good time to call out the fundraiser numbers if you want.
And that is a great time. So while I try and find some information real quick to get some more news to cover for the Korean situation, we're going to let Matthew read off the top supporters of tonight's fundraiser to Doctors Without Borders. And so with that, take it away real quick, Matthew, while we get the news.
All right, folks, and to report our current progress on the fundraiser, we are at $3,800 of our $10,000 goal. So we're only about 20 minutes into the stream, so really great progress. Thank you so much all for your generosity. And to call off our top donors for now, we have a $250 donation from Spencer, as well as James Reyes. Then we have a $200 donation from the BC Skyman. We also have several $100 donations. The first one is from Technical Fool, Malachite, Oats Air, Susan G, Zoan Tran. We also have a $75 donation from Avarwi Mandubratis. Hopefully I got your name right that time. I think I got the right pronunciation. But we also have several $50 donations. The first one is from Heather Fitzgibbon. The second one is Sarah Schaefer. Then we have one from Junebug72, Davis Campbell, Greg Carrier, AJ, GTO Joe 04, RF from USA, Shannon Alaminsky, M1 Fixer, Richard Bell, Mom Cat Max, AZ, and finally, to round it off, Jan Andrews. So those are the top donors for the moment. And also, thank you to all of the anonymous donors, and thank you to the smaller donations as well, because we are still climbing up, and I think we're at still 3.8 thousand, but it's moving pretty quickly. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, and of course, I think all of us here, both me, Matthew, and Starsky, can all say thank you so much to everyone who has helped this fundraiser to get as far as it's gotten in such a short amount of time. We've already reached $3.8 thousand in support to Doctors Without Borders, and it's unbelievable and absolutely impressive to think that we've already made it here, and we can make it to $10,000 probably before the next 30 minutes or so, thanks to massive amounts of support from viewers like Paul Fitzgerald, who just threw in a whole $500 donation to Doctors Without Borders, whipping us straight up to $4.4 thousand, just $6.6 $1,000 away from tonight's goal. I know the Lee Spring Army can do it, and we'll be looking forward to seeing if we can reach that before the end of this hour. But with that in mind, and of course, thank you so much once again for the massive amount in donation to Doctors Without Borders, Paul Fitzgerald. It's time real quick to cover the North Korean and South Korean news. Now, for a second there, when I heard this, and from what I was reading earlier, I thought that the North Korean army and the South Korean army were firing rounds over the border, which has happened several times before. I believe the earliest instance of a major escalation like that was in 2002. But from what I am seeing, according to this article from Bloomberg News, and I would have gotten it from Reuters, but I went onto Reuters, and they demanded that I paid, and of course, y'all know I don't pay, so we had to go and find a free one, so we went to Bloomberg. So here is the current situation in Korea, according to this news article. The two Koreas fired warning shots at each near a nautical border after Seoul said a merchant vessel from its neighbor crossed the line, adding to a recent series of provocations along one of the world's most militarized boundaries. South Korea's military said it fired warning shots after the North Korean vessel violated the western border at 3:42 a.m. on Monday. Pyongyang reported by firing around 10 artillery shells less than 2 hours later toward a South Korean ship that landed on the north side of the line, South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said. No damage was reported to any vessel, but the incident comes as North Korea has tested border safety agreements in recent weeks by flying warplanes near South Korean airspace and firing scores of artillery shells off its coast. Pyongyang said it made the moves to warn South Korea against joint military drills with the U.S. that in recent weeks have also included Japan. North Korea has also been showing its anger at the exercises by firing off one of its biggest barrages of ballistic missiles under leader Kim Jong-un, including shooting its first missile over Japan in 5 years. The General Staff of North Korea's army issued a statement shortly after the incident, along with the nautical border Monday, saying it was sending a grave warning to the enemies, the official Korean Central News Agency reported. Seoul called on its neighbor to stop raising tensions, saying it is harmful to peace and security on the Korean peninsula. While the armistice that ended the 1950-53 Korean War spelled out land borders, there is no such agreement for the LOC border, known as the Northern Limit Line. It was drawn unilaterally by U.S.-led forces after the conflict, and waters around the boundary have been the site of clashes, including a 2010 incident where South Korea claimed North Korea's torpedoed one of its warships south of the line, killing 46 sailors. North Korea has denied the accusation. North Korea appears ready to take tensions to the highest levels in years, with the US, South Korea, and Japan all saying that Kim's regime is ready to test a nuclear device for the first time since 2017. North Korea may have been holding off on a test as to not upset its biggest benefactor, China, as it was holding its Communist Party Congress, which finished over the weekend. Any display of the weapons in Leader Kim's nuclear arsenal would serve as a reminder of the pressing security problems posed by Pyongyang that have simmered as the current US president's administration has been focused on Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And so it appears that this is a border clash in the sea, pretty much as to who controls what in terms of the islands. And so it doesn't appear to be as major as I thought, but still, the Koreas have not directly exchanged warning shots with each other in, I believe, almost a decade, and so it is pretty tense. We'll make sure to keep an eye on this situation, and if it does start to evolve into something much more hostile, we will make sure to try and report on that if we can, and as much as we can. And so with that, we're now going to be returning back to our Ukraine war news after that brief intermission on the situation in Ukraine, and we're going to be moving into the center, pretty much deep Siberia near Lake Baikal, where we saw a very interesting event today. Now, Starsky, I think you and me, while we're not exactly pilots, we can get the general idea that planes are supposed to fly, I guess you could say, level with the ground at different heights, if you can agree with me.
I agree on that, but from what I saw in this video, obviously they don't count gravitation.
I don't think they do, and I don't think that's the way you normally fly a plane.
Well, I saw some of kamikaze drones doing that, and my theory is that Russians were testing a new kamikaze drone type based on jet fighter Su-30.
And so I'm guessing that this one also came with the pilot included.
Yeah, we know that 2 pilots got toasted.
Oh. And I would have to say that looks quite toasty. We now see after this car took a quick pause, it's decided that the bread in the back of the car needs to arrive at the apartment, and so they continue on with their task. We can now see from another angle the absolute damage that this Su-30 ramming into the ground at almost 400 miles per hour did to this entire city block.
Ой, божечки, ой, божечки.
We now see another angle from the street itself, and even another as we watch the houses burn down where this jet crashed. Now, that is the second time in 4 days that we've seen a Russian jet slam into a residential area out of control. The first time that we saw this was just right outside of Ukraine in Russian-controlled land near Rostov-on-Don in the town of Isk. And this is the first time that we've ever seen an incident like this happen so far into Russia and Siberia near Lake Baikal. We don't know the exact reason why these pilots slammed into the ground at such an angle and such a speed, but some people have been assuming that it may have been that the pilots blacked out. It could have also been for other reasons. I'm assuming that they decided that their contract had expired and they no longer wanted to work for the Russian Air Force. With that, we're now going to be moving on from the town of Irkutsk and on into the town, and hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly, of Khabarovsk, if I'm correct.
Khabarovsk.
I'm going to get that wrong every time. Yeah, I'm going to get that wrong every single time. But we can see that more Russians are being sent out due to the partial mobilization, but I think at this point, they are scraping the barrel as far as the manpower they can actually muster for this war, and so I would call it a full mobilization. So let's take a look at this video of all of these Russians getting ready to leave to head to Ukraine. We when you hear a band playing the inspection march. And I gotta say, if that's an inspection, they're not really in any kind of good formation. We now see them boarding the plane. A little bit of fanfare. And of course, the typical look of the Russians, mismatched camouflage colors, mismatched uniform types as well. And it just shows you how poorly the quote-unquote second best army in the world is really doing. To think that the Russians said that they were a force to be reckoned with and a true world power before this war is such a joke at this point, because they can't even get the right kind of headgear amongst them all. They can't get a standard issue uniform. With that, that's the end of that video, and once again, it's just hilarious to see that the Russians keep on trying to make this war work, but they can't even make the uniforms work, and much less the weapons. The uniforms are just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how poorly the Russians are doing supply-wise, but their uniforms say a lot about what used to be, in most people's minds, the second strongest army in the world, only behind the United States. Now they're only the second best in Ukraine. With that, we're now going to be moving on from that little bit of news in the far east of Russia, and we're going to be moving all the way back to Kyiv. And of course, we're about to be covering some of the news in the location unknowns, but before we get to that, let's see how far this fundraiser has gone. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew? And also, do we have any polls?
So we do have some polls, but first up, we are over halfway toward our goal. We're sitting at $5.6 thousand, and we're only about 35 minutes into the stream. So excellent progress, and thank you all so very much once again for that generosity. And Enforcer, we do have a few more top donors I would like to call out when you're ready.
And please do.
All right, and first up, I want to recognize that $500 donation once more from Paul Fitzgerald earlier, as well as a $400 donation from Mike G, as well as several $100 donations. The first one is from Ryan Whitehouse, the next one is from Activista, and there's also one from Zyber Sniper 1. Then we have three $50 donations. The first one is Terrence Custer, also Super Bonker 9000, and Jimmy. So thank you very much to all of you for your support of the fundraiser and to everyone else that has donated.
And of course, I thank all of y'all so much for y'all support, each and every one of y'all, whether it be a $1 donation or a $500 or $1,000 donation. Every single one of them means a lot. And tonight, the Lee Spring Army is once again rocketing its way up towards the goal. Just 30 minutes into the actual live stream itself, we have already gotten well over the halfway point. And so, of course, I thank each and every one of y'all so much once again. And while we don't ever like to make merciless plugs about anything on this channel, I will make a merciless plug for Doctors Without Borders. They are an incredible nonprofit doing incredible work in Ukraine, and I highly suggest that if you would like any kind of medical aid or medical support to make it to the Ukrainians, Doctors Without Borders is one of the best organizations to do so. 80% of their support that they get goes directly into field work, and 20% of it goes towards the payrolls of the doctors, the surgeons, and everyone else behind the scenes who helps Doctors Without Borders to keep running. It's an incredible organization through and through. They have an unbelievable record. I would say that they do better than really any other nonprofit in that category, and that's why we support them so much, and I hope y'all do as well. Also, by the way, Matthew, I have forgotten up to this point that I have not thrown in my $100. So real quick,
What?
Yeah,
Enforcer, come on.
Starsky joined our call, and that completely made me forget. So real quick, Starsky, I'm going to throw up a $100 donation to Doctors Without Borders as well, and then we will be going through the questions. Sorry that it happened so late into the stream, everyone, but I'm glad I didn't forget all the way. So real quick, let me get through this.
All right, and Enforcer, while you're doing that, I can actually go ahead and call out the results of that poll if you want.
Yeah, let's hear the poll.
All right, so we only have one poll for now just because on Sunday nights, I'm always so busy in the live chat, so more are to come, but only one for now. And the first question is, does it seem that instability in the world is increasing? So it looks like 79% said yes, countries are behaving quite badly, 17% said it's somewhat normal, and 4% said no, it's stable as usual. Now, I would definitely have to say that right now it seems like the world is moving at 100 miles an hour, and we really need to put the brakes on it because it seems like a lot of people are getting unstable at the same time. I'm not sure what sparked it. If it was the Ukraine-Russia war, maybe COVID or something. I don't know what caused it, but people are out of control right now, in my opinion. But Enforcer and Starsky, what say y'all?
I'm actually going to let Starsky take that one first.
Yes. So what I clearly see here is that because Putin invaded Ukraine brutally, other maniacs realized that basically they can do the same. It's obvious. And if Putin decides to use nuclear weapons, it would be a clear signal for other maniacs that they can do the same without being punished. And I think that people should realize that.
And I would have to agree with that entirely. I would have to say that ever since the war in Ukraine has begun, it seems that the world has started moving at 100 miles an hour. In case if y'all did not hear, and this is something that unfortunately due to our channel entirely focusing right now on the war in Ukraine, which is a great cause, but we will be trying to focus on even more news as the next few weeks come by. Things have gotten even more unstable and more odd in China, as for the first time in history, a premier of the Chinese government, Xi Jinping, has been voted in for a third term in office. The Chinese presidents, much like a U.S. president, serve 4 years in the office, and unlike the United States, where every citizen is eligible to vote and can vote in the presidential election, in China, only the inner party members can vote on the next president of China. And for some reason, I don't know if it has anything to do with Xi making the, I guess you could say, on-the-nose statement he did by having President Hu removed from the Communist Party's council's chambers, or something else, but for some reason they all unanimously voted on having Xi Jinping run for a third term, and he did, and he won by a landslide. That right there in itself appears to be taking China down a more odd route, I guess you could say, than ever before. In fact, there has never been a time in China's history where, unlike Mao, I believe Mao is the only example that falls out of this archetype, that a Chinese president has not served for more than 2 terms. And of course, North Korea and South Korea with their own conflicts, really just North Korea in terms of its dealings with all of East Asia, firing missiles over Hokkaido and also getting into warning shot battles with South Korea, certainly aren't making the situation better. And of course, China directly threatening Taiwan almost every single day at this point is also making the entirety of East Asia, along with North Korea, highly unstable. Also, on top of that, due to the Russians and the current war in Ukraine, which we've been covering every single day, that has started to destabilize the Eastern European area a decent amount as well. We've seen that the Russians are still been determined on threatening the Baltic states and Poland as well if they ever get the opportunity. And if they ever have the ability to continue out and carry out those threats, they certainly will. And so with that, I hope that addresses that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one. And also, Matthew, could we call out the absolute mad lad who just threw in $500?
Yes, we can. And it was Dutch Arjen that put in a $500 donation. Big one, very big one. And thank you so much for that, as well as My Left Foot, who put in a $100 donation, and also Scott Freeman that put in a $50.
And I got to thank all 3 of y'all so much for y'all's support. Y'all have gotten us up to 7,000, and now just chilling, throwing in $150 has gotten us up to 7.2 thousand. We are now less than $3,000. We're around 2.7. Correction, we're around $2.5 thousand away from tonight's goal. Just 40 minutes in, pretty much, into tonight's stream. Of course,
Hey, big shout out to DCC Prime 1 as well for putting in that $200 donation.
Yeah, of course. I was actually about to get to that. And also Chef Pat for throwing in 50 Canadian. This fundraiser tonight is going in a million miles an hour. I don't know about y'all, but I think we're about to be reaching 10K in the next 10 to 20 minutes or so. It seems like it's just going at that kind of speed tonight. And so with that, of course, I hope we were able to address those donations incredibly well. And thank you so much once again for supporting Doctors Without Borders. And with that, we are on to the next poll.
All right, so that is our only poll for now. So moving into our first live chat question, we have one from Ritz Flying Circus, who says, what is Ukraine doing with the Russian criminal POWs that they catch?
And that is a great question that I have not been able to answer, but I think Starsky may have a little bit more information on us than us on that topic. And so I'm going to hand that one over to Starsky.
Thank you. So it depends on the situation. If those POWs are if they are related to Russian army, if they are actual members of Russian armed forces, like servicemen, then they will be exchanged, of course, for Ukrainian POWs. In case they are just mercenaries. Mercenaries are not regulated by Geneva Convention. That's why they're being detained, arrested, and I think they will face Ukrainian trial or international trial.
And so with that, I hope that answers your question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and the next question goes to Xavier Estrada, who says, why are Russian planes crashing? Is it poor maintenance, mobilized pilot program, or kamikaze training?
In my opinion, and also I think Starsky would probably have some interesting comments to add to this one here in a second. In my opinion, I believe these Russian jets are crashing most likely to some kind of poor maintenance or poor training. If we look at the amount of flight hours, and let's pull this up and have a comparison. Average flight hours of Russian pilots. The Russian Air Force, an average combat pilot in the Russian Air Force, gets around 60 to 100 flight hours per year. Let's look at the average flight hours of a U.S. pilot. Average flight hours of a U.S. pilot. And we can see, wait a minute, no, that's an average airline pilot. U.S. Air Force pilot, that's what we're looking for. So the average Air Force pilot here in the U.S. Air Force can get about, let's see here, according to the 2021 figures, 10.1 hours per month. And if we multiply that over the course of the entire year, which we will real quick, let me do that. Let's see here. 10.1. And I know that sounds like a simple multiplication, but I gotta make sure. The average U.S. Air Force pilot is getting around 121.2 flight hours per year. That is twice as much on the low end and still 20 hours on the high end over their Russian counterparts in the Russian Air Force. And so you can see that in terms of hands-on flight hours, Russian pilots are getting a lot less experience, and therefore that could be leading to a decent amount of the accidents we're seeing in air. Another thing that is incredibly apparent is that the Russian aviation industry so far in this war has ground to a complete halt, and they were hardly even operational before the war. Parts are incredibly hard to come by in Russia, and to produce these parts, they require sometimes certain kinds of technology. That technology has now been barred from them because, of course, they have pretty much been embargoed by every nation on Earth. And so, for that reason, parts and equipment may be running out, and they may be trying to stretch the use of some of their parts to the breaking point, and we may be seeing that that's why so many crashes are happening from Russian aircraft as well. But real quick, I'm going to hand that one over to Operator Starsky as well, because I think he may have some very interesting points to add to that as well.
Thank you, bro. So I have this new theory, actually, that they evolved probably from using like kamikaze drones to actual kamikaze, because to me, it looks like this way. I may be wrong, of course.
I mean, like, I don't think you're too wrong, because they are going for buildings every single time. So I think they may be trying to get the whole pattern down. It's just the unfortunate thing, Starsky, is that in training, they can only do it once. And I don't think they'll ever be able to transfer those skills to the front line. But at least, at least they're putting their efforts towards something that seems to be worthwhile in a way, at least for Ukraine and the West. And so with that, I hope we addressed that question fairly well, and we are on to the final question of the night. Also, Starsky, I think you'll find this one funny. Luca Mato said, perhaps devolved instead, LOL. That's actually a pretty good one. And so with that, we are on to the last question of this segment.
All right, and the last one of the segment goes to Jason M. Schmidt, who says, does Ukraine have air defenses against heavy bombers?
And I'm going to have to hand that one over to Starsky, because I feel like they do, but I'm not entirely sure.
Yes, we have plenty of air defense against high-altitude aircraft, not so much against low-flying aircraft, like those drones, for example, because it's much easier to target. And I'm talking about modern times, right? It's much easier to target aircraft flying at high altitude that you can easily spot using any sort of radar than those flying low over the ground, like attack helicopters, like drones, etc.
And so with that, I hope that answers your question fairly well. And with that, we have rounded out this question segment as well. We're now going to be moving on into our next segment of news, which will deal with the location unknowns. And so, here is our first clip, and this one was insane. Speaking of Russian aircraft not really having a good time, we actually got to see the end result of a Russian Su-25 being shot down and the pilot ejecting, and this camera was attached to his helmet. And so, here's the video, and it's pretty wild all the way around. He ejects. You see the Su-25 explode right in front of him. It appears that the pilot's now winded. And he's also seeing all of these sunflowers around him. He's like, hey, wait a minute. The pilot's now standing up.
Welcome to Ukraine.
I think he likes it here, and he'll have to stay regardless whether he wants to or not now. What did he say right there?
He says everything's okay.
Oh, it's not going to be okay for long.
I think that eventually he could be captured. Actually,
I think that he probably will be. And he's really, and I gotta say, from the helmet cam footage, it really looks like he's taking in the surroundings. He's like, this is Ukraine.
Yeah.
I better get familiar with it. I think I'm going to be here for a pretty long while. And so that's the end of the video. We can also see part of the ejection seat. If y'all know what I'm trying to get at, you know. And so with that, we're going to be moving on from that clip and on into the next one. That was a pretty wild one. And we can see that some more prisoners of war have been taken by the Ukrainian forces. Also, that's got music, so we're going to have to mute that. But we see the Ukrainian soldiers holding up a BMP at gunpoint, Russians climbing out and getting on the ground. And wait a minute, I think, Matthew, that is the same footage from before, but from a different angle, and that BMP surrendered to the Ukrainian forces at the predestined spot.
Yeah, it looks familiar.
It does look familiar, and so I think that is the second camera angle we got of that instance, which I believe happened around 2 or 2.5 weeks ago. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of news, where we can also see Ukrainian soldiers seeing his son for the first time, according to the caption, in 200 days. Of course, it'll have to be muted for copyright reasons, but it's an incredibly sweet video, as this son has probably not seen their dad at all, and of course, much like everyone, was probably incredibly worried for their safety, and they got reunited again. And look at that right there. And so with that, that's the end of that video, but a very touching one. And it's great to see that a family was reunited again, even during the the stresses of war. With that, we're now going to be moving on into our next clip, where we can also see some Ukrainian trenches. And Starsky, I don't know about you, but I think they're going to start charging rent on the front lines with the quality of these trenches these days. Of course, it's
if we're talking about so I think I know why Russians are so eager to attack. For example, in the area of Bakhmut, is because later you will see in this video that there are like TV sets and PC monitors installed. That explains a lot to me.
They're like, oh man, I would love to have great TV and washing machine. Let me surrender.
Yeah, that sounds legit. But I can confirm that because I lived in such bunkers for quite a while during my 5 deployments in different periods. But yeah, I can confirm that we totally live in such conditions.
And real quick, Starsky, I want to make sure that I saw this correctly. Is that farming simulator?
Yeah, that's a farming simulator.
Oh my God!
Yeah, you can rarely see some guys playing first-person shooters and stuff on the front lines, except for freaking recons. Those guys are crazy.
I gotta say, man, like, I saw a little bit of this video, like 20 seconds of it when I was putting together this news, but I never got to this part to see that there was Farming Simulator on the screen. Also, if I remember correctly, don't you play Farming Simulator too?
Yeah, definitely.
Y'all heard it here first, everyone. Starsky plays Farming Simulator, and not only is he farming the crops in the game, but he's farming the Russians in real life too. And we can see the rest of this nice little bunker that they've set up here. And I've got to say, this thing is top quality. Like, as far as trenches go, this is rent-worthy. What is this like, Matty? It's that Japanese, like, hotel
That
where you...
capsule hotel?
Yeah, it's like a capsule hotel nearly, underground in a trench. I mean, they did a great job at this, I gotta say, and I'm really blown away, and I bet a lot of people in the live chat are probably blown away, too, with the quality of this trench. Now, real quick, everyone, before we move on to the next one, I was thinking it's about time for a general order. It's about time for general order number 4. If you have the ability to throw in $5... General order number 4, the $5 general orders are about to be activated. So if you have $5 to throw in, throw it in. I'm going to be throwing in an additional $20 tonight just to make sure. Well, actually, no, we're going to make it 50 just to leave from the front. So let me throw in another 50, and I hope y'all all join me with a $5 donation of your own. General order number 4 is now in effect. So real quick, everyone, I'm going to throw in my $5. Well, not 5, 50, because I got to do it times 10. So let me throw that in real quick. And there we go. And also, Matthew, you put that in as a hashtag.
Oh, dang.
Hang on real quick. I'll throw it in. General order number 4 is in effect. And there we go. The general order number 4s are rolling in right now. And with that, we're now going to start moving on into our next clip. And hopefully, through the combined power of the general order...
Look at it go.
It's going insane. Through the combined power of the general order number 4, we can make it to 10K here in the next few minutes. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip while the general order number 4 is going literally insane.
9,000.
Oh my gosh, we've already reached 9,000. We've already reached 9.1.
It's going fast.
And so with that, we're now going to be checking out a brand new kamikaze drone while we reach 10K here within the next few minutes.
Oh, that's sick.
That is so sick, actually. Whoa, we reached 10K! Yeah! Let's go! General order number 4 did it! Like, what did we do, man? They like $2,000 in like 5 minutes?
Yeah, like something like that.
Oh my lord! Wait a minute, hang on. Let me go through. It couldn't have. Someone had to have thrown in something massive, right? Or it literally. Wait a minute. Nicholas Condor with a 500 Canadian donation and Anonymous with 100 helped out a massive deal. Jack Ray with $200 and a S'more with 50. A lot of y'all threw in a massive amount of support right there, and we just reached 10K from 8.3K, I believe, in the course of just 2 or 3 minutes. That is unbelievable, and it's crazy to see that the general orders actually work every single time. It's like, what? That's insane. And so with that, we're now going to let this video continue of this crazy little cool racing drone. And of course, thank you to everyone so much who made this possible tonight for us to once again blow through another goal. The Lee Spring Army has never failed at a goal, and I don't think we ever will. The amount we've raised now in support of Ukraine is sitting around $572,000 at this very moment.
Партія дронів камікадзе у кількості 300 штук, які виготовляються для розвідувальної групи Тихімадяра, буде виглядати отак. Перші 30 дронів, які виготовлені для розвідувальної групи, вже на нулі, як ви чуєте.
We now see them taking a good look at the drone still.
Нести щастя.
Prepare to deliver happiness to the invaders. This almost sounds like a corporate prepared line about a McDonald's hamburger, but I think that this thing will not be giving out hamburgers. It's going to be making hamburger meat.
It's because they are meant to stop suffering. Here in Ukraine, we have a joke that Russians who behaved bad after death go to Russia.
Oh. Is that worse than hell, or is that like the equivalent of purgatory?
Something like that.
You're just like, yeah, it's something like that. So with that, we're going to let the video continue.
Як ви бачите, зараз це бойова частина цього дрона, яка важить 450 грам. Але в нас є і більші вагомі подарунки.
Matthew, for some reason, I feel like this thing is rigged up like those videos that you see on TikTok where they're like, the design is very human. And then, it does like the most inhumane thing to someone. I feel like this drone would almost have that same kind of introduction.
Yeah, I'm surprised it can pick that payload up.
Really, I am too. It's a pretty big little bomb for that drone.
Південного фронту. Тихімадяра завжди в небі. Разом до перемоги, друзі. Перемагаємо. Слава Україні!
Now they're flying it around.
Він полетів гарненько, поки що без подаруночка, але вже дуже вправно.
I thought he was flying it around with a bomb on it for a minute.
No.
I was about to say, no way he's actually like swinging that thing around like that.
Imagine that thing with a bomb strapped to it. Jeez. That's scary. And with that, that's the end of the video, and it's good to know that this thing, according to Starsky, is an instrument meaning to relieve suffering. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see some incredibly cute puppies. For one of the first times in a long time, we've finally gotten another video of cute puppies. It's a very rare sight to see these days, but it's good to see.
Всем привет, друзья! Сейчас я вам покажу, что мы нашли. Вы готовы? Ничего себе! Ничего себе! Тут и что?
That one's going to become the next bomb-sniffing dog. It shows the leadership inside itself already. And so that's the end of that video. And it's great to see that the Ukrainian soldiers are taking care of like little puppies and things like that on the front lines. And of course, a cute video to see out of all of the, calamities and hardships of war. We always get to see a little bit of a silver lining every once in a while, like these cute little puppies. And so with that, we're now... Go ahead, Starsky.
Yeah, it reminded me of a story that I literally saw that in Zaitsevo. Zaitsevo, not far from Svetlodarsk. We were deployed there in 2019. And part of this village was controlled by our forces. Part of this village was controlled... there you see like pants.
Oh, here we
go. Yeah, yeah.
So part of this village was controlled by Russian hybrid army, and what they did was basically they would attach a lantern to a dog's neck and tie this dog to a tree and make so it would just wander around the tree and stuff, attracting attention of our snipers and our observers equipped with thermals, because they wanted to obviously spot our positions, our firing positions. That way, they would use dogs to attract our fire. And that's a big difference between us and them.
Thanks. That's a very big difference. I hate to hear that they did things like that to dogs. That's actually pretty messed up. But then again, it's not really out of the realm of anything for the Russians. I mean, like historically, they've always done some pretty twisted stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe Starsky, you have heard of the story of the Soviet suicide dogs in the Second World War.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. So, suffice it to say, the Russians kind of have a little bit of a history with being sick like that. I mean, like, that's just really sick. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip where we can see a load of Humvees. Of course, provided by the United States to Ukraine. And a lot of them. I mean, like, it's a load. And so here's the video. And now I cannot play the lo-fi jazz music that you'd hear in a coffee cafe, but you can see here, that's a lot of Humvees. I'd like to see that too. We've seen that the Ukrainians have used these Humvees to a great extent so far in this war, of course, during lightning fast raids. We actually saw Starsky interview the absolute legend that was on the machine gun of that Humvee that we showed on this channel about a week and a half or 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I met Yuri a couple of weeks ago. Unfortunately, I couldn't make this video earlier because of all those missile strikes and electricity blackouts and stuff. But yeah, I was happy that I met him in Kiev. And he's legendary, yeah.
And I gotta say, it was a really cool video too. I really liked watching it. And so with that, we are now onto the final clip of Location Unknown News, where we can see that a mother soldier came home to her boy as well. We actually had 2 videos like this today. Very rare to even get one, much less 2 videos. And once again, it was a very heartwarming thing to see that they finally got reunited after such a long time.
Mama.
Привіт, моя сонечко. Привіт, мати. Привіт, Боже, ви всі великі. Це я зараз буду плакати.
And so with that, that's the end of the video. And of course, the entire chat is cutting onions. I'm almost cutting onions, and it's a very nice video to see that this family was reunited once again after this mother fighting on the front lines so long to help defend the country that this boy will grow up in. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on from these Location Unknown news segments after quite a high note, although it was kind of a high note that elicited tears. And with that, we're now going to be moving to the northeastern area of the front lines. And while we haven't gotten any video evidence of activity in the northeastern area, that so far appears to be somewhat typical. The Ukrainians have most likely paused in this area to reorganize supply lines, and so they will stay that way for some while. However, moving further down the front lines in south of Zlotove, we did see that the Ukrainians captured a Mista today. With that, that's the end of the video, and I think I know why they call it a Mista. Is because when you're standing near the back of this thing, you are getting misted by the just straight up gas fumes that are coming out of that thing as it moves around. And so with that,
the word msta, the word msta reminds me of like месть, or revenge. Which basically the same. Yeah, you got misted and dirty.
Well, thank you for the addition, Starsky. That was actually a pretty good one. And with that, we're now going to be moving down to the area of Kreminna, where we also saw that the Ukrainians were hitting some Russian trenches today. Of course, Russian trenches don't have the kind of quality nor the price per square foot of a Ukrainian trench, and so their loss is not as sorely missed. But you can see here that for once, the Russians actually dug it in a zigzag as well, which is quite rare. We can already see the Ukrainians just lining up the bomblet. They're making sure that the bomblet gets stabilized so it doesn't go flinging over to the side. They've dropped it now, and it's falling straight down into what appeared to be, I'm assuming I might be wrong here, a mortar pit? I can't really tell what's down there, though.
Yes, to me it looks like a position for a 120mm mortar.
Hey, I got that right. So that we can see that it went up in a nice white puff of smoke, and that mortar most likely won't be used again. And I guess you could say that the Russians have gotten very accustomed to disappearing in a puff of smoke. I guess you could say that a lot of them are going to go on to become illusionists after the end of the war, although I think that they or may not be available anymore for that. They may be all for sleeping. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of news, which is right behind Kremenna, near the town of Rubizhny, where we saw that the Russians were deploying their finest. Now, I don't know if a lot of y'all have watched Disney cartoons as a kid, specifically the ones of the World War II propaganda kind, but y'all may remember that whenever there was an artillery piece being pulled around in those videos, it was bouncing around the road behind the truck. In this video, the Russians made it a reality. Art imitates life, or as they say, life imitates art. And in this way, this Russian artillery piece is really imitating art. That's about a visual representation of the Russian government at this point in the war. And that also is the Ukrainian armed forces. They're on the left just bypassing them. And so that's the end of the video. And of course, it's a funny one to see. And I don't understand why in the world are the Russians using such an old artillery piece? And on top of that, why is the tire so bad off? I thought Starsky, that these guys were supposed to be the best in the world. What happened to that? And look, they're carrying firewood in the back. Of course.
Yeah. To me, it's like, I agree they are second in the world, only from the other end.
Who would be under them? Who would be the worst in the world?
Oh my god, I don't know.
Let's see. We got a little bit of a list here. North Korea. We've got South Sudan, Nicaragua. I mean, like, there's a couple. I mean, we could guess forever, but I would have to say there is. Honestly, I'd have to say maybe they are the second best at being the first worst. I don't know, but anyways, with that. We're now going to be moving on from this clip and out of the Kremenna area. And before we do, we haven't seen any frontline movement in this entire area that we can report of. So far, it appears that the front line, if there are any movements, is largely static because we haven't been able to account for them on our map. And of course, we base ours heavily off of video and picture evidence, and so there may be frontline changes that we aren't able to account for as of right now because of a lack of video evidence. But with that, we're now going to be moving towards the area of Belarusian, and this was a decent amount of misreporting. The 95th Air Brigade, as far as we know, may not even be in this area, but we put the marker down here in the Belarusian area. And so here's a clip of them cooking off some Russian vehicles. There is never an off-season for a barbecue in Ukraine, and I think the 95th Air Brigade is certainly showing that there is no limit to how many grills you can have on the front line, too. We can even see a third grill that hasn't been started up further down the road. With that, that's the end of that video, and it's nice to see that the 95th Air Brigade is keeping it up fairly well against the Russian armed forces and also inflicting a decent amount of damage onto their armored vehicles. Moving further on down the front line to Soledar, we've also seen the Fighting 93rd, which made a incredible name for itself in the Balaklia area months ago, is engaging in combat against the Russian armed forces here. And it appears that they're using a Shilka to do so. And so here's the video, and I gotta say, the rip and roar of a Shilka is something that you just can't really hear anywhere else. Let's hear the clip. Hang on. Correction. That is not a Shilka. Let me actually pull it up real quick. I believe the Shilka is a ZSU-23, not a ZU-23-3. So real quick, let me pull this up and make sure.
I think it's 23-4.
Let's see, ZSU 23. Yes, it is. It's the ZSU 23-4. So I was actually pretty well off because this is not a shotgun. That is a 23 millimeter, if I'm correct, and I want to make sure I'm not. Yes, a dual 23 millimeter anti-aircraft gun that the 93rd is using against the Russians. So, got that wrong. It's not a shotgun, but still, you can still hear them ripping apart the Russians with this as well. We now see one of the crew members firing off their AK as well. We now see the truck pulling away the anti-aircraft gun right as this rifleman, or I guess you say crew member, runs out of ammo. Now, I don't know about you, Starsky, but I feel like it would be a terrible way to die if you died from an anti-aircraft gun that sounded somewhat like a fart.
Well, in reality, it sounds horrifying. It's like a roar, you know. There's like, I'm not sure if it's true, but they say that before one bullet, not bullet, the shell, because 23 millimeter shells are used. Before the first shell leaves the barrel, there are already two other shells inside of it. Like I'm not sure it's even true, but that's what they say.
Let's see if it is true, because that actually sounds pretty insane. Let's look at the fire rate on this thing. And according to Wikipedia, it has a rate of fire of 2,000 rounds per minute in a cyclic and 400 rounds per minute practical. So it's at 2,000 rounds per minute. I'm pretty certain that might be true. At 400 rounds per minute, most likely not, but still, that is insane to see that this thing can have a fire rate like that. And so with that, it's really cool to see that the 93rd Brigade is using them to repel Russian forces in the Bakhmut area. And while the Russians have continuously been trying to break through at Bakhmut with small-scale assaults, it appears that the Ukrainians are still holding the line and are not allowing them any kind of ground or any leeway to make ground whatsoever. With that, we're now going to be moving even further down the line and into what we call the Maginot in Donetsk, where we saw that Ukrainian tank got hit today, but it appears that it wasn't too critical of a hit. It may have been on the engine bay. And of course, I believe these videos are important to show, because while we always show that Ukrainian forces are succeeding, and they always are, of course, at this point in the war, we have seen them steamroll the Russians so much, that always comes with a little bit of risk. And I believe that that's always important to show at times, because it puts into perspective how brave the average Ukrainian soldier is. And I've said this multiple times before, and I may sound like a broken record saying this, but a war is not a cakewalk. And while the Ukrainians make it look like a cakewalk, joking and laughing all the way through it, there is always the chance that one could be in a pretty tough situation like we see here. But yet these soldiers, every single day, soldiers just like Starsky, go out onto this front line and continue to fight and defend their nation and have no second thoughts, no second guesses, and no hesitations whatsoever in doing so. And for that reason, they're not just heroes because they steamroll the Russians, they are heroes because they know the risks, yet they just laugh in the face of death pretty much every single day. And so here's the video of this slightly damaged. It is smoking, but it's not smoking as in an ammo detonation. It appears that it may have had something similar to an engine fire due to the hit. Well, you now see that later on the Ukrainian vehicle did get hit, but the fire doesn't appear to be as severe as it is on a normal Russian tank, showing that the crew was most likely able to bail. But still, you've got to give a massive credit for the heroism of Ukrainian soldiers that continue to face down the Russians every day, and not only that, they continue to steamroll them and push them back in almost all areas of the front right now in the northeast and Kherson. With that in mind, we have not seen any frontline changes from the northeastern area down to Donetsk. We most likely will not be seeing any frontline changes throughout the entirety of the war in the Donetsk region due to the heavy fortifications there, but still, the Ukrainians are doing incredibly well, and we hopefully will see some kind of frontline movements, some major ones in the Kherson area here in the following days and weeks. With that, we're now going to be finally moving down to the southern front, where we have not seen any frontline activity much, and not a lot of frontline changes at all over the past few weeks and months, but we did see one clip of a Russian recon squad being hit quite effectively by Ukrainian fire, particularly the artillery. And so here's the video of these Russians getting turned into dust. We can see here this Russian recon squad with their Tiger armored cars pulling over and taking a minute to, I guess you could say, observe the terrain. We can now see a countdown, and it looks like the first one just got hit. The Russians in the back are now running up towards the rear Tiger car. And it looks like some Russians are now getting in their aerobics. Always have to make sure to not skip leg day. With that, that's the end of the video, and it's nice to see that the Ukrainian artillery was able to hit these guys spot on and make sure that they can't really do a lot of the reconning, and they'll be doing more of the other thing that starts with an R, running. With that, we're now going to be moving into the inside of Ukraine, and while we don't know exactly where this happened today, we did see an absolute hero return from the front line, well, not the front lines, but from Ukrainian folklore at this point, Patron the bomb-sniffing dog. Here's a quick little clip of Patron the bomb-sniffing dog with some exclusive Patron the bomb-sniffing dog stamps. And I'm going to have to mute that because that's piano music. We don't want copyright. When you see them carrying around Patron.
That dog's like a natural for the camera.
It really is. It's, go ahead, Starsky.
Yeah, so it's very important because part of the revenue for those post stamps, part of that revenue will be spent for stray dogs, for their shelters and food and stuff like that.
Oh, that's incredibly nice. And a lot of people have been talking about all of the dogs and just pets in general that have been left behind in Ukraine. And it's terrible to think that so many of them just had to be left behind because there was nothing else to do with them at the time. But it is good to know that people are starting to care for them. We see them giving a speech. Of course, we can't play it because there's piano music in the background. But we do have subtitles down here in case if you can read Ukrainian.
Yeah, so they were saying that they visited this pet shelter. They brought some food and stuff for the dogs, and they will be continuing helping this shelter in the future.
And that was that's incredibly nice to hear. And of course, it's great to see that Patron finally made another visit on the front. Well, not on the front, but now it appears that he's largely retired from frontline activity, and he's now traveling around making sure to keep up people and dog spirits incredibly high. And I think he's doing quite a good job because every time I see that dog, I love that dog. It's a great one. And so with that, that is the end of all of the news from around the world, Ukraine, Russia, and Korea, surprisingly, tonight. And so with that, we're now going to be going to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky. And with that, our news segment will be rounding out to a close, and our question segment will begin. And we'll also be recognizing all of the supporters that have thrown in have thrown in a donation to tonight's fundraiser. And so with that, here is the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 243 of the war. And it looks like there may have been a video error there. Let's pull that one up real quick. So it looks like there was a freeze. So real quick, we're going to refresh. We're going to click again. There's another freeze.
Uh-oh.
We're going to take this over to another screen. I'm going to beat it real quick, and then hopefully it will work. So let's see here. We're still getting an error. So real quick, everyone, let me go and see if I can pull it up. Here we go. All right, so let me see if I can go and find that exact video and title. Y'all might be hearing that a little bit in y'all's background, so
good.
Hang on. I'm trying to make sure that we're getting the right one. And this appears to be it. So with that, I'm going to throw up the subtitles. And without further ado, and hopefully without any more glitches for the night, here is the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 243 of the war. And so without further ado, here's the speech.
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні вже можемо прозвітувати, що в усіх наших регіонах, які стали мішенню вчорашньої російської терористичної атаки, відновлена технічна можливість постачання електрики. Я дякую кожному і кожній, хто працював без упину, щоб дати людям світло. Звичайно, у багатьох містах і районах нашим енергокомпаніям доводиться застосовувати графіки стабілізаційних відключень. Це робиться, щоб в усіх наших людей був доступ до енергії в умовах, коли її виробництво неможливо в достатньому обсязі. Відновити зруйновані ударами терористів енергооб'єкти – це значно довша і складніша справа. Але з часом ми і це забезпечимо. З часом. Цей час потрібно пройти. Тому і сьогодні, і надалі, як і раніше, потрібно дуже свідомо споживати електрику. Будь ласка, не забувайте обмежувати використання непотрібної та енергозатратної техніки. Окремо хочу звернутися до очільників громад і мерів наших міст. Будь ласка, слідкуйте, щоб енергія не витрачалась даремно. Цей час точно не час для яскравих вітрин і вивісок. Потрібно дуже бережливо ставитись до енергоспоживання в публічному просторі. Продовжується відновлювання і на деокупованій території. Кожної доби я отримую нові звіти про підключення до газу, води, електрики сотень домогосподарств у звільнених районах. Зокрема, лише за сьогодні, лише в 2 районах Харківської області 346 абонентів знову з газом. Місто Вовчанськ. Ще 750 абонентів з електрикою. Місто Ізюм. Ще 300 абонентів з електрикою. Це постійна робота, яка не припиняється жодного дня і триває на усій звільненій території України. Всюди, куди Росія принесла смерть і деградацію, ми повертаємо нормальне життя. Саме це про українців. Там, де Україна, ніколи не знищується життя. Ось там, де і куди приходить Росія, вона залишає по собі всюди масові могили, катівні, зруйновані міста, села, заміновану землю, знищену інфраструктуру, природні катастрофи. Тому, коли сьогодні російський міністр оборони влаштовує телефонну карусель і обдзвонює іноземних міністрів з розповідями про так звану брудну ядерну бомбу, всі все добре розуміють. Розуміють, хто джерело усього брудного, що тільки можна уявити у цій війні. Це Росія влаштувала шантаж радіаційною катастрофою на Запорізькій АЕС. Це траєкторія російських ракет пролягає, зокрема, над українськими атомними об'єктами. Це російські військові замінували дамбу і агрегати Каховської ГЕС і шантажують їх підривом. Це Росія використовує фосфорні боєприпаси, заборонені протипіхотні міни та увесь спектр озброєнь проти цивільної інфраструктури. Україна – це завжди про відновлення, завжди про життя. І якщо хтось і може застосувати ядерну зброю в нашій частині Європи, то це лише один суб'єкт. І цей суб'єкт якраз і наказав товаришу Шойгу кудись там телефонувати. Якщо Росія телефонує і розказує, що нібито Україна щось готує, то це означає одне – Росія вже все це і підготувала. Вважаю, що зараз світ повинен максимально жорстко відреагувати. Якщо Росія підготувала чергове підняття ставок і черговий ескалаційний крок, вона вже зараз превентивно і до будь-якого нового свого бруду має побачити, що світ це не проковтне. Навіть вже сама російська погроза ядерною зброєю, і тим більше проти нашої держави, яка віддала свій ядерний арсенал під обіцянки безпеки з боку найбільших ядерних держав, це підстава і для санкцій, і для ще більшого посилення підтримки України. Бо чим міцніше нас підтримують, тим швидше закінчиться ця війна і будь-які можливі російські погрози. Коли держава-терорист піднімає ставки, вона повинна відчути, що це не спрацює. На тижні, що починається, це буде завданням номер 1 для нашої дипломатії – пояснювати, що відбувається. Я впевнений, світ буде з нами, світ зрозуміє. Дуже важливо, що сьогодні з нашого порту вийшло вже 6-те судно з продовольством, яке зафрахтовано в рамках Всесвітньої продовольчої програми ООН. Це судно прямує до Ємену з пшеницею. Ефіопія, Ємен, Афганістан – це 3 країни, що вже отримали продовольство завдяки нашому експорту і продовольчій програмі ООН. Ось саме такі програми – це те, про що ми думаємо в Україні. Як допомогти вийти з кризи, а не як створити кризу. Як допомогти вирішити проблему, а не як загнати когось в проблему. Як відновити зруйноване, а не зруйнувати ще більше. Це те, що відрізняє Україну від Росії. Це те, завдяки чому ми зрештою переможемо. Бо ми воюємо і працюємо заради життя. Слава Україні!
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky, and that also rounds out our news coverage for tonight here on day 243 of the war. If you were here for the news alone, I thank you so much once again for watching. And of course, if you have enjoyed, please make sure to subscribe as well, as these streams run every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. We take that day off, and so we will not be on tomorrow night, but we will be on the night after that. Of course, thank you all so much once again for getting this fundraiser to where it's gotten. It's gotten to $11,000 tonight, and a load of that, around $2,000 of that, I believe, or more, came from General Order number 4 alone. And I gotta thank each and every one of y'all. We cannot name out all of y'all because there's hundreds of y'all, but each and every one of y'all who participated in the General Order number 4, I thank you all so much once again, and I thank everyone else who supported tonight's fundraiser. That will go to help out Doctors Without Borders, and in the end will help to the Ukrainian people. And so with that, we're now going to be covering our top donors in between the last question segment and this one, and we'll also be answering questions for the remainder of the night. And so with that, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and here we go. Our top donors are Steve Furman, who puts in a $250 donation. We also have a $200 donation from Jack Ray, as well as William Flies. Then we have several $100 donations from Jack Ray, Sean Collins, Clay Claiborne, John Galt, and also Peter, let's see if I can say this properly, Demestahas. Peter, I'm sorry about your last name, man. I'm butchering it, but thank you so much for that donation. Also, we have an $80 donation from Walter A. Lakota, as well as a $50 from Smarzig, S. Moore, Turn Off Your Gaslight, Evanescent Wave, Max Power, Justice Ryan, and finally, Sharon Tukolsky. So thank you very much to all of you for the top donations of the night. And also, we want to make a point to recognize all of the other donations as well that were a little smaller, because that General Order number 4 put us over the 10,000. So really, thank you so much for another successful fundraiser.
And of course, I thank everyone so much who supported tonight's fundraiser. It means a lot to all of us here that y'all support Ukraine so much. And for us to be able to do this 32 fundraisers in, it's unbelievable. And I thank you all so much once again. I know y'all probably get tired of hearing me shower all of y'all with praise, but it's truly unbelievable to see the kindness of y'all this far into the war and how much we've been able to help out. We're now sitting at around $573,000 raised in support. I'll have to go back and make sure that the math is perfectly correct, but we are only about $27,000 away from being at $600,000 raised from this channel alone. Now, believe it or not, Matthew, someone threw me an absolute mind-blowing statement in the live chat, and they are absolutely correct. Yes. Starsky and Matthew, would you believe it if I told you we completely forgot to cover the Kherson news segment?
Really?
We did.
Oh my god. It's due to the OPSEC, I would say so.
Yeah, it's due to the OPSEC. We could go through, if it's all right with both of y'all, and we could cover this news segment, and of course, if it's okay with a live chat as well, we could go through and run back and cover that real quick since we just forgot about that.
Sure.
All right, and so with that, we are back with part 2 of the news. The news segment is not over. We just pulled out 5 brand new news clips that I completely forgot to cover earlier. And so with that, we're now going to be moving from the southern front and into the Kherson area, where we can see that today the Ukrainians had Toyota Grad does whatever a Toyota Grad can. And so with that, here's the Toyota Grad. Pretty cool looking.
Пострел!
Пострел! Да, подъезжай, сержант.
Have you ever wanted...
Toyota, built tough as nails.
Dagnabbit, you and me thought of the same thing. Have you ever wanted to get yourself a brand new Toyota that has the awesome firepower of 3 127mm Grad rockets? Well, then if you want that, you want to get yourself a Toyota. The Toyota can do just about anything you want, and is built like a corn-fed Kansas country boy. Get yourself one while supplies last, because we're selling out. And of course, a really cool video to see at that. I think Starsky is not cued in as to who that is. Do you know who we're talking about, Starsky, when we do that voice?
Not really.
Oh, dang. Okay, quick. I got to show you. So, have you ever seen this man before? He's about yay high, has a giant white mustache, and he shows up in a lot of American Western movies.
Probably, yeah.
Okay,
Probably I saw.
so this guy is Sam Elliott, and he is known for having this incredibly cool voice and doing commercials, I believe for Chevy, if I'm correct, Matthew.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and for some reason we always talk about Ford, but I think he's actually the Chevy commercial guy. But he's a pretty known actor and celebrity here in the United States, and that's who we're imitating with that voice. Just in case if you were out of the loop on that one, because you know, like who in the hell would know Sam Elliott outside the U.S. And so with that, we're going to be moving on into the next part of the front line. Of course, one thing I would like to say, though, is that we're not violating operational security with these markers. While they did occur in the Kherson area, these markers are put down, and I'm perfectly okay with saying this. I feel like it's great to say it in this area. Completely at random. We have no idea in the Kherson region where these really happened. We're just putting the markers down in these areas just so that way you can get the idea that they happen somewhere near the front line, but not giving away their exact location. And so with that, we're moving on into the next clip of news, where we can see some Ukrainians using some stingers. And I gotta say, these things sting. I don't know if y'all have ever been hit by one, but I have. I'm just kidding. And so here's the video. See them spooling up the stinger. You now see them fire the stinger. And now they're heading back into the tree line. Looks like he may have grabbed another stinger. Not entirely sure. I don't think I saw that one actually leave his hands.
Є, воно, взрив, упав. Упав вроді.
Yeah, they shot down one.
Oh, nice!
Да.
Do you know what they shot down?
No.
Упав, вроді, да, туди.
Man.
Yeah, but they're saying that I see explosion, it fell down.
Nice. So with that, we got to see the Ukrainians get another air kill on film with the stinger. Those things do sting. With that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip where we can see, and of course we put this marker near Cherivne, but we have no idea if it is near Cherivne. We saw another destroyed T-62. Now, Starsky, I don't think the Ukrainian army can last long against this kind of high-tech, modern equipment.
It's horrifying.
It's scary, it really is.
Горіли ублюдки, сука. Капонірчики. Кончелиги, сука, йобані.
Toasty.
He's swearing.
Сука. Підар йобаний.
It's like, look at those losers, they made all of those trenches and stuff. Didn't help them.
And it really didn't, because that one looks pretty well cooked. It also looks like the suspension gave out while it was burning, because that thing is a low rider, for sure. And so with that, we're now going to be moving on into the next clip of news in the Kherson area. Somewhere, we put this one near Oleksandrivka, but we don't know if it is near Oleksandrivka. We did see HIMARS firing in this video, though. So here's that little clip. And it's always nice to see the la HIMARS firing. Those things are pretty cool. And I'm glad to see that the Ukrainians are still using them, hopefully to great effect. We didn't get to see where the round landed, but the HIMARS really never miss. With that, we're moving on to our last clip of news in the Kherson area, where we saw a Ukrainian buggy on the move. Now, I already know that this one has copyrighted music, so we're going to mute it from the bat, but here's the video. We can see the buggy right back there, accompanied by a whole large convoy of Ukrainian vehicles following right behind. The buggies are really cool. I like them.
Oh my god, in my brigade we had Stugna buggies. So yeah, I even have pictures of that. So it's like a buggy with the Stugna installed on top. You can dismount the Stugna and relocate it. And there's like 4 or 5 missiles, like additional missiles in the cargo compartment. And it's awesome because like it's a low profile vehicle, and you can basically destroy enemy tanks from huge distance even before they spot you.
That is really cool, actually. I didn't know that. I didn't know that your unit had them. I think we've seen, like, I think they were like, what were they called, Matthew? Polaris ATVs with Stugnas. We've never actually seen those particular buggies like this one with a Stugna. Yeah, I think we saw one with the Cornets, though. But that is really cool that your unit has those. That's really a very genius idea. It's like a modern-day, like, updated technical, pretty much. And that's really cool to know. And so with that...
Yeah, we had them since 2016, I guess, or 17.
Really? Like that long?
Yeah. I made a bunch of videos regarding that, by the way.
I'm gonna have to check those out. That sounds pretty freaking cool. And I didn't know y'all had them for that long. It actually looked like from the videos we were getting that those started to really pop up in form on film like 3 months into the war. I didn't know that was something that y'all have pretty much innovated on the entirety of the Donbass conflict since 2016 to now. That's just nuts. And so with that, now that we've covered all of that news, do we have any other top donors, Matthew? And if not, what kind of questions and polls do we have?
So, no top donors for the moment, but we did hit $12,000. I do have to report that.
Hey, $12,000. What a night it's been. And I haven't seen...
Crazy.
And also on top of that, there haven't been super heavy hitters in tonight. You know, like Mark, who sent in 7.5. Well, I think at one point, didn't he send in like $10,000 in a single donation? Like,
I think so.
We haven't even had any heavy hitters like that tonight. All of this has been done by somewhat large. I think the largest one we've had tonight is about $500, but mostly smaller donations. And it's unbelievable to see that we've gotten up to $12,000 off of just smaller donations alone. Really nuts to see. And of course, thank you everyone so much once again for getting us this high up in the fundraiser. Now, real quick, I'm going to go off screen and look at this one. And we have reached $12,540.39 exactly on my second screen on this fundraiser. Now it went up another $5. It's just unbelievable to see that the fundraiser is still doing this well. And so thank you so much once again, everyone. And with that, let's get to the polls and the questions.
All right. So for our final segment, we do have 2 polls to go over. And the first one said, why do you think Russian planes crash so often? So this had to do with the question that we asked earlier. It looks like 71% said poor maintenance, 16% said bad training for pilots, 7% said kamikaze training, and 5% said none of the above. So very interesting results. An overwhelming majority think it was poor maintenance, and I would tend to agree with that. But Enforcer, what do you think?
I would have to say it's most likely poor maintenance. I believe the pilots may also be getting a fairly small amount of flight time compared to U.S. pilots, and for that they may be incredibly inexperienced. And so I would really have to go with a combination of the two, although that isn't an option, of poor maintenance and very poor pilot training, but I would largely lean more towards the maintenance side. What do you think, Starsky?
So I had another theory that I announced in the stream previously. So early in this invasion, there was information that Russian air schools for Russian military pilots, those Russian army was recruiting from those schools prematurely, basically before the graduation. And undergraduated Russian cadets could join the army to supplant those pilots lost during the first months. Probably that could be the reason.
Interesting. That could be a reason as well. That would really contribute to poor pilot training, and I wouldn't doubt it from the Russians either, because they don't really care what kind of training anyone has. They'll just throw them at something and just hope that they have enough of them that they'll do something right, at least a whole group of them. And so with that, I hope we addressed that poll fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, in the next poll, and I'm going to have to admit, this poll is a little bit flawed because I forgot to mention someone, and I'm going to say it in just a minute. The question is, do you think Patron is the best doggo in Ukraine? And I forgot to mention Fudge in the poll, so dang.
That's a
but
crime.
anyways.
That's a crime.
That is
Starsky,
a crime.
Starsky, put him up against the wall. That's a crime. You can't be having that.
You're lucky that I have my headphones on and Fudge doesn't hear that, because he would be upset.
Oh man, is it Fudge or is it Fudge?
It's Fudge, actually.
Fudge?
Okay. But I don't care.
I'm saying it the real southern way, Fudge.
But anyways.
The
double Dutch fudge.
Yes. It sounds like I'm almost saying something else. But anyways, 88% said yes, I want more Patron, and 12% said no, no more Patron. So what's up with the 12%, man? What's going on?
What? Like, I'm obviously within the 88%. I want more Patron, and I think we're going to have to go over there and conduct a special kidnapping operation and bring him back to America because that's just such a cute dog. But what the hell's wrong with the 12%ers? Why in the world do you not like the dog? I mean, Starsky, why do you think the 12% doesn't like the dog?
They are fans of cats, I think.
Maybe, but I think they might honestly be jealous of the drip because if we look at this dog, that thing's got a sick vest. I mean, like it's got a great vest on it. So let's go back real quick and look at that sweet little dog. Look at that thing. How in the world could?
And they're holding him. They're holding him like royalty too.
Yeah, they're holding him. Honestly, they're holding him like a little sausage. You know, like it's just bought him from the market. Like, look at the little vest it's got. It's just a cute dog all around. I love dogs. And that was probably one of my favorite ones so far. It just looks cute and everything. And someone actually said something, and I don't think you know about this TV show, Starsky, and I think this will be a trip down memory lane for you, Matthew, but someone said that Patron dog looks a lot like Wishbone, the dog. And it does, doesn't it?
It does.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Just like him.
Oh man, I can't even hardly remember that show. That brought back a lot of memories looking at that.
Oh man, in case you don't know, Starsky, Wishbone is a children's show way back in the day that I watched as a kid about a dog, and he would do all kinds of weird things. It was, I believe, he traveled through history, but it was a really cool little like show altogether, and it had a dog, this dog, and it actually looks a lot like Patron. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, I had to Stugna a bot real quick, but I think he's gone. Yep, there he's gone. Hey! But anyways, there we go. So that's all the polls and everything. So we're moving on to our live chat questions. And up first, we have a question from the Pack Rat, who says, would this war drawing on longer than it needs to? How likely do you think NATO will get involved in the future, seeming as the percent is increasing every single day?
And I think that's a pretty good question. I'm going to let Starsky start off by answering that one.
So currently, our main mission is to make sure that Ukraine is still supplied by those. We're not talking about like years, decades, or whatever. We're talking about tomorrow. We need those weapons tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and so on because political situation can change dramatically in different countries and a lot of things depend on that. Ukrainian lives depend on that. That's why we hope that this support supply of Ukraine supply for Ukraine will not stop. I cannot predict how much time it's gonna take, from months to years. There are different predictions, but yeah, we should remember that Ukrainians rely on those weapon supplies, not because they kill people, it's because they save people.
And also, that's a great point. I actually heard you bring that up earlier, Starsky, that there has started to become a little bit of pushback in supporting Ukraine, that those weapons and support is just going on into dragging this war on longer and ending up killing more people. But from what we've already seen, if we don't give weapons to the Ukrainians, the Russians will end up killing even more people in the occupied areas, like in Izium or in the Bucha Hostomel European area, or even in Mariupol, which is probably the worst instance that the Ukrainians haven't reached yet to show on the ground. And so I would have to entirely agree with you on that one, that I believe it is imperative to continue to send weapons to Ukraine, so that way, of course, we can make sure that European stability is ensured, make sure to put the Russians back down to, I guess you could say, bottom peg in Europe, and also to make sure that more Ukrainians do not end up dying senselessly in this war under Russian occupation, because it will inevitably happen. We've already seen it happen with the Russians having a small amount of leeway in the occupied areas over the past 8 months of the war. And so with that, we are on to the next one. I hope we were both able to address that one fairly well.
All right, and up next we have a live chat question from Chronically Alien, who says, Enforcer or Starsky, Are HIMARS being used more and more for closer to frontline defense / offense, fighting, destroying? ?
And I'll hand that one over to Starsky real quick.
Unfortunately, I cannot tell you much details about HIMARS operations because, Russians are hunting those systems every day. Every day they report that more and more of them destroyed, probably like 10 times more than we actually have physically in Ukraine. But they are used for precise strikes. Of course, they are used in the areas when our counteroffensive operation is ongoing. So, yeah, they're used for different purpose. Again, unfortunately, I cannot tell you much details because we gotta save them. They are very, very important for us.
And while Starsky cannot get into a lot of detail, one thing I can say from video evidence is that we have seen that in recent weeks, the Ukrainians are starting to use the HIMARS, according to video evidence, more on, well, not more so than the alternative, but a little bit more on frontline units. But once again, that's entirely based off of video evidence. We don't have any actual statistics or numbers based off of what kind of targets they're selecting and where they are. And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well on both of our ends. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And real quick, big shout out to Mal LIT for putting in a £50 donation, I think.
And I believe, Matthew, that is supposed to be one of those gaff names like mallet, like a wooden mallet.
Oh, really?
I might be wrong there, but I thank you so much for the £50 donation, mallet, rubber mallet. It helps out a lot, and that support will go directly to Doctors Without Borders, which helps out a whole load in Ukraine. And so thank you so much once again, and thank you to the anonymous donor who just sent in $50 as well. And so with that, we are on to the next one, and another anonymous with another 50.
All right, and up next we have a question from Justin Norse, who says, has Ukraine been finally provided with 300-kilometer ATACMS missiles?
From what I know, I don't think so. And so I'll hand it over to Starsky real quick to give an answer on that as well.
I didn't hear about it, unfortunately. So, no, I cannot address this question because I don't have information on that.
And so with that, I hope we were able to address that one fairly well. But from what I know, the ATACMS were on the table to be sent over, but there was a little bit of waffling in the U.S. government about whether we should send them over or not, and what kind of national security issues that could pose. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next is we have a question from Richard Parnell. And Richard, I'm not sure if Starsky is going to be able to answer this question or not, but we will give it a shot anyway. He says, can you ask Operator Starsky how often troops are rotated out of the front lines, or are only certain ones allowed?
It depends. It depends on different spans of the front lines, different cities and towns. It depends on command of different units. So it's very different in different locations.
And so with that, I hope that does address the question fairly well. Of course, I would have to declare ignorance on that one. It's a great thing that we have Starsky on tonight, because I don't know exact levels of depth and detail on Ukrainian forces and how they operate like that. So I hope that Operator Starsky was able to answer that question fairly well. And I just saw, Matthew, that we got confirmation from Mallet that that is actually the gaff in his name. It is supposed to be Mallet. And so with that...
What do you know?
Yeah, and so I was pretty good at catching that one. For some reason, Matthew, I'm really good at catching those like gaff names. So if you ever feel
I'm not. So if y'all remember, I'm definitely not good at catching those.
No, Matthew is not. Y'all may remember a particular one that started with Nick and then ended with something else. And that one we didn't catch in time. So Matthew, if you ever feel that a name may have a gaff attached, just make sure to let me see it, because apparently I'm actually pretty good with catching them. But of course, thank you so much, Misc77, Miscellaneous 77, for donating $100 to tonight's fundraiser. Of course, that goes to help out Doctors Without Borders, and we thank everyone so much once again for all of the support that's been sent in. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, real quick, big shout out to Misc77 for putting in a $100 donation to the fundraiser. Thank you very much for your generosity with that as well. and I think we're starting to get close to 13,000 potentially, but I think we still have a little ways to go. But up next, we have a question from Chuck Reichert, who says, isn't it ironic that Russia traded prisoners for Viktor Medvedchuk, the very arms dealer that created their current logistics and supplies issue?
And I'm going to hand that one over to Starsky real quick and let him answer that one.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Another funny fact is that Medvedchuk told our investigators quite a lot on Putin and his schemes, and now he is there in Russia, so we don't know what may happen to him there, and we don't care much about it, actually.
Now, would you say that Windows are in his future?
Could be, because again, Windows are very, very dangerous. They became very, very dangerous in Russia. People should stay out from Windows. They act like those black holes. They change gravity, and people can get sucked out of those windows instantly for no reason.
And I gotta say, it's unfortunate to know that that the regulatory agencies in Russia have not made Windows safe. I believe that there should be a political campaign started in Russia, and their entire premise should be making Windows safe, because they are just incredibly dangerous over there. And so with that, I hope we addressed that one fairly well, and we are on to the next one. Also, real quick, Starsky, you're probably wondering why I'm deferring so many questions to you from the start. That is because when you are here, a lot of people want to ask questions directed to you, and I want to make sure that we have a lot of questions answered by you, because we only have the opportunity to have you on like one time a week, or like one time every 2 weeks. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, big shout out to William Sullivan for putting in a $100 donation as well. William, thank you so much for that. It's very generous of you. And moving on to our next question, we have one from Cameron K, who says, Enforcer, I disagree that captured convict would be better off becoming a prisoner in Ukrainian jail. Is still better than being a non-convicted and not jailed regular Russian.
And I thank you for the comment, but I would have to say that, I don't know, I mean, like, that's a pretty fair point, and so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a question from Gary Lenahan, who says, if the USA and Russia have a nuclear exchange, that leaves one world power, China. Noodle that.
Well, I would actually have to say that if we start flinging nukes at Russia, I feel like at that point we'd be like, to hell with it. We'd probably just start firing nukes at China as well, just to make sure to even the whole playing field at the same time. But once again, I'm not entirely sure on that one. So with that, I thank you for throwing that in. That's actually a pretty good point. That may turn out to be the case, but at the same time, I don't see it happening. And also, if you see what China looks like today, I think that they've pretty much nuked their own pretty much environment that they live in due to the pollution that they have. Like, I don't know if y'all have seen it, but in most places in China, most people have never even seen a blue sky most of the time, because the smog and pollution is so bad in most areas of the country that it's impossible to see, even when it's a perfectly sunny day. The smog is just that bad. And so with that, I hope that addresses the comment fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
And up next, we have a question from Mech Tactical, who says, a question for Starsky. If a Russian conscript immediately surrenders and can prove they just entered the conflict, can they request asylum and get freedom?
I'm not entirely
Yes, they definitely can do that. Thank you for the question. They definitely can do that. We also have this program called Stay Alive, or I Want to Leave. And anybody, not only conscripts, but also their mobilized guys, and everybody can call the hotline and receive all the required information on where to go, how to give up, and what they can receive on the Ukrainian side, because in most of cases, in case they want to cooperate, or if they just arrived, they did no crimes on Ukrainian territory, they can also request for asylum in Ukraine. 100%. I mean, Ukraine accept everybody who has, this will to leave, basically.
And so with that, I hope that answers the question fairly well, because I was actually about to declare ignorance. And so Starsky actually answered that one way better than I could. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from Ra DMSMA, who says, what would be the event that would cause Ukraine to start targeting the drone launch sites in Belarus?
That is a pretty good question. I would have to say that most likely Belarusian military activity, while it may not be coming from the northern area on the Belarusian border, if Belarusian units were to be found and identified within the current front lines in Ukraine, I feel like that would implicate the Belarusians enough that the Ukrainians would probably at that point begin to strike at drone sites within Belarus. But I'm going to also let Starsky weigh in on that one, because that's a very interesting question.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with the enforcer. Actually, because Belarus already used their territory as hub for Russian army that attacked Ukraine, and because they used their territory to launch cruise missiles, Belarus, we could already do that. It's a direct involvement into this war by Belarusians. But I'm not a diplomat, I'm not a politician, I don't know how it works, unfortunately, and why we still didn't do that, because we have all rights of doing that.
And of course, I have to say as well, I am not a politician or a diplomat either, so I'm kind of taking shots in the dark based off of what seems logical and the most reasonable. And so take it with a grain of salt, but that's what I think would most likely lead Ukraine to start targeting Belarusian drone sites. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next we have a question from James Reyes, who says, if NATO were to get involved in the war, could Turkey block their waters to NATO ships crossing into the Black Sea? I'm just curious, because I can't put anything past Turkey being so difficult.
Turkey being Turkey, they would probably do something like that, because they're Turks. I don't know why. I hate to say this. I don't know why the Turkish nation does the things they do, because they'll pander to the Russians, they'll pander to the West, and then they'll just screw both of them and then do their own thing at some points. So I actually have absolutely no idea what the Turkish precedent would be on anything, because it seems that it's just whatever they fancy at the moment. So they may shut off the strait to NATO ships as well if they needed to. So I'm not entirely sure. It's within the realm of possibility, and I cannot rule it out just because it's Turkey, and we've never seen Turkey make sense this entire war. And so with that, I'm going to hand that over to Starsky real quick as well.
Yeah, well, in my opinion, again, I'm not a NATO soldier, but in my opinion, first of all, Turkey is a NATO member. They are being often reminded of that by different countries. So I think that they will not be closing the strait. And another thing is that we probably gotta ask some Turkish person to explain from the Turkish standpoint, what happens there.
I mean, like, honestly, I don't know if you've been following Turkey a lot, Starsky, but what they do sometimes is incredibly odd. For example, they will make sometimes they will make arms deals with Russian-aligned countries like Azerbaijan, which also uses Bayraktars, although they are a member of the CS. Wait a minute, hang on. I think I may have that switched around. I believe it's either Armenia or Azerbaijan that's a member of the CSTO, but let me make sure on that real quick.
It's Armenia. It's Armenia. Russians have plenty of their military bases in Armenia. And yes, Azerbaijan uses Bayraktars.
Interesting. So it's good to know that I was getting that wrong and have that clarified real quick. But the Turks will attack the Kurds, which the United States is always trying to keep good relations with the Kurdish people of northern Iraq. Yet the Turkish government will go down there and target and take out Kurdish forces. They also, when the entirety of the Western world pretty much responded in Syria and had their backed coalition there, the Turks then invaded the north of Syria in 2019, which went completely against the interests of the rest of NATO and the West, which was just completely odd. And then some things that they've done during this war, while being beneficial to Ukraine and the West, they also do things that are kind of in the opposite direction in a way. And it's always like, what in the world is Turkey doing now? And so and that's why I won't rule out that Turkey would close off the straits to NATO ships, because sometimes, well, almost half the time, what they do seems to be almost in direct opposition of the alliances that they're in with NATO. And so it's like, would they do something like that, or would they not? I don't know. Like, that's why I can't rule it out. But still, they are a NATO member. That is their primary alliance. And while it doesn't seem to me that it means a lot to them, it may mean something to them at that point if NATO intervention was needed in the Black Sea. And so with that, I hope I addressed that fairly well, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and I almost forgot to go over the Morse code. Mark Hodges and CFA figured it out. They say the Morse code message tonight reads, Russia can't threaten NATO. What are they going to do? Lose? Slava Ukraine.
And you got that correct. Ding, 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 ding. That is the Morse code message of the night. And that's what I'm always thinking whenever the Russians threaten NATO like they did today. What in the world would they do? Like, you know, like, rather than nuke the West, what other alternative do they have? A land war? Like, what are they going to do? Like, really? Are they just going to lose? Because that's what will happen. And so with that, I thank you so much for deciphering the Morse code message again. And with that in mind, we're going to be answering 10 more questions from the live chat and then rounding out tonight's stream. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a question from Squamous Tarkus, who says, are y'all worried that the withdrawal from Kherson is a trick to blow the dam and flood Ukrainian troops?
In my opinion, I don't think so. I believe that the Russians are retreating because their logistics across the river are so screwed up at this point. It's hard to get any viable amounts of supplies across. They already know that the inexperienced and poorly equipped soldiers on the other side of the river, when faced with the prospect of another Ukrainian counterattack, would most likely collapse at the slightest amount of a push. And so for that reason, they are already starting to evacuate their collaborators, and, you know, at the same time telling the others, hey, y'all might want to leave. And they're also getting their soldiers out of there as well, because they know that it's already going to be a losing battle before it's even fought. That's my opinion. I don't think that they're losing all of this land, which will pretty much be unrecoverable beyond this point, to blow up the dam and then try and kill the potential thousands of Ukrainian citizens and soldiers that would be within the perimeter of Kherson at that point. But then again, Zelensky has been indicating in that direction, which may suggest that he has information that we don't. But that's my standpoint so far. So real quick, I'm going to hand it over to Starsky to allow him to have his comments on what he thinks of the situation as well.
Yeah, I agree on that because, again, we see that they are nearly like panicking there, right? Which again may be a just like informational trick, informational trickstery, so to say. So we will see. It's very hard to judge at this point because on one hand, they are kinda retreating as if they have absolutely no soldiers there. At the same time, we know that they have quite a few BTGs located in the area, and there's a lot of their men. It's not like they don't have anybody there. So if they wanted to fight, they would probably do that, even though they lack supplies. But from their media, because it's in their media, which doesn't happen often, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're talking that they're retreating, that they're talking that they're evacuating their collaborationist personnel and stuff. So this could be trickstery, in my opinion.
And it may be. At this point, I think it could be anyone's guess, really, what would happen here, because I am kind of on the fence with you, Starsky, as well. It seems to be like they are retreating, and they're just they're giving up the ground before they suffer irreparable losses. But at the same time, it doesn't really make a lot of sense when looking at it from another angle, and it looks like it may be some kind of a trick as well. And so with that, I hope that does address that comment fairly well. I hope we were able to address that question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. And also, big shout out to Bill Vanderpaul for putting in a $100 donation to the fundraiser. Bill, you're getting us much closer to that 13,000. I think we're a couple $100 away from hitting it. So that might be coming up before the stream ends tonight. But up next for our questions, we have one from, let's see where I was, Super Action General, who says, a question for Operator Starsky. How has Operator Max reacted to his new subscribers, and will he join a Starsky live stream someday?
Oh yeah, I forgot to say, Starsky, you know the channel The Flashback, correct?
Yes, this channel is made by my buddy Max. He is my second press officer in my brigade, and he does incredible job there on the front lines. Currently, he is in the area of Bakhmut with our brigade.
So real quick, we actually showed one of his videos on our stream before, and we gave him a massive shout out in front. And since then, it appears that he went from 3.3 or 3.5 thousand subscribers to close to 7,000 subscribers. And of course, we think that his work is incredible. It was an amazing video showing what the actual fighting is like at the front lines. And in case if you were watching this stream right now and this is the first time you've heard of this guy, make sure to go over and subscribe to The Flashback. He is on the front lines right now in Ukraine, showing what it's like out there. And if there are any YouTube channels covering this war that deserve a load of subscribers, it is The Flashback, along with Starsky. Make sure to real quick merciless plug for Starsky. Make sure to subscribe to Starsky as well. But this guy does incredible work. And it's Starsky, do you know anything that he is going to be doing in the future? Any future plans he has?
Well, currently he's covering this defensive operation in Bakhmut. The situation is kind of hard because Russians brought everything they had. They brought a massive amount of those convicts that were recruited by Wagner Group. And he is covering this in his videos. So you will see yourself.
And hopefully,
yeah, but regarding the question, he is very, very happy to see so many people in the commentaries because before you guys subscribed to his channel, there were plenty of Russian trolls commenting, and he told me that he's happy to see like intelligent people in the commentaries finally. So thank you so much.
And of course, I thank everyone in the Lee Spring Army who's gone over and subscribed to the channel. Real quick, let's see if he's had a little bit of a boost here. He's already gotten up to 7.03 just within the past few minutes.
Nice.
That's pretty good. He's just got, I think he just got like 100 subscribers right there. Man, let's bump him up to 7.5. But with that, it was a really cool channel, really great. I love what he's doing. And Starsky let him know that the Lee Spring Army sends their regards to him as well, and we wish him the best out there on the front lines because he's doing some amazing work. And so with that,
thank you so much.
No problem at all. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, ding, 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 ding. We reached $13,000 thanks to Anonymous, who put in a $300 donation.
$13,000 thanks to the anonymous donor. Of course, one thing that I always think, Matthew, is like, what if they didn't mean to click the anonymous button and they just accidentally did? They're like, oh, dang it. But of course, I thank you so much to the anonymous donor who just threw in that $300. Your $300 support just got that fundraiser up to $13,100, going to Doctors Without Borders, most likely here within the future. I think that YouTube gives about several days to a week before they send out the funds just to make sure that they have it all compiled together properly, but that will be on its way to Doctors Without Borders and helping out Ukrainians here very soon. And so with that, thank you so much once again to everyone tonight who's gotten us to 13,000. And with that, we are on to the next one. And thank you everyone so much once again.
And also, I saw Steve saying in the live chat, how do you guys deal with Russian trolls? I guess moderation is a lot easier when it's just chats. And yes, it is. When you're watching the chat, you can easily get rid of bots because it's pretty easy to see who is a bot. Usually the grammar is really bad or something doesn't make any sense. Also, I have some software which helps me identify bots. But yeah, it's a lot harder to go through and read all the comments on a video than it is to like weed them out of a live chat. So that makes it a lot harder for the flashback to get to those, I'd imagine, because it takes a hell of a lot of time to go through all those comments as well. But anyways, up next we have a question from Stephen Fields, who says, Enforcer, don't know if you already covered it, but what is the likelihood that Russia detonates a dirty bomb?
The likelihood of that is most likely small. Of course, that would be traced back to the Russians immediately, even if they tried to make it look like it was some kind of a terrorist attack. That would most likely be blamed on the Russians, and the West would directly get involved. For that reason, for the fact that Uncle Sam may be coming for him, I don't think they would be doing that because, in case if y'all have not noticed, Uncle Sam has got a lot of guns, and he does pretty good a job at fighting wars. And so I don't really think the Russians want to be going up against the West, specifically just the United States alone, because that would be a losing war from the start. So I feel like for that reason, the use of a dirty bomb and the chances of it would be quite low. And with that, we are on to the next one. Well, real quick, do you have any comments to add to that, Starsky?
No, I totally agree with you.
All right, and so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and next up, we have a question from Mike Hoffman, who says, since Operator Starsky is here, has he or you guys heard of what looked like the Russians burying dozens of sea mines wrapped in mine-clearing cord in Kopani?
I think I saw something like that. Unfortunately, I didn't read that that article. We had that on the news, actually. So it looks like they made a very long trench and they buried a lot of those something that looks like sea mines. They look like big cylinders. We're not really sure about it, like what it is, but we keep our eye on it.
And so with that, I hope that does address the comment fairly well. I did not hear about those sea mines being wrapped with any kind of cords, but it appears that Starsky has. And so I hope that addresses the comment fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and Psyops, I hope you're still around. We're finally getting up to your question. He says, could you ask Operator Starsky, how effective are the Ukrainian battle beards? Thanks.
Okay, guys. So, they are very effective on pictures. It's my own opinion, okay? Because I had a beard at some point. It makes it very inconvenient in case you're trying to strap your like that one. You cannot have you cannot wear properly your helmet. You cannot strap the helmet on your chin, and it makes it very inconvenient in case you want to wear a gas mask because you will die. In case there's a gas attack, you will die 100%. That's why I prefer shaving, but it's up to the guys. I mean, they look stylish. I agree on that.
And they are killing it out there with the beards. I mean, like they may die if there is a gas attack, but they will die with style. I will say that. That is a cool look. And so with that, I hope that addresses your question fairly well. And we are on, I believe these are the last 5 or 4 of the night, if I'm correct, Matthew.
Yes, I think we have 4 more to go. And the next one goes to Avarwi Mandubratis once again. This time says, any video evidence of HIMARS M30A1, M30A2, or ERGM LRS AW variants being used against Russian targets? 182,000 tungsten ball bearings would tear through trenches and vehicles.
We have seen evidence of that. We've seen that a HIMARS missile landed in the midst of a Russian MTLB convoy, and we saw that 3 of them were abandoned, and there were, it pretty much looked like a large buckshot hit the side of the MTLB, as there was just a whole bunch of holes that went through the tank, and of course some of them didn't go through, but they caused massive dents into the armor, and most likely caused spalling within the cab. So we have seen evidence of those being used, and I'm also going to hand that over to Starsky real quick, so that way he can answer it as well.
Yeah, I saw that video as well, and I think it's beautiful because this means that we start using those not only against strategic objects like or operative objects like ammunition storages and stuff, but also against actual Russian vehicles and convoys and Russian personnel, which is great. It means that we finally came to a point when we can use our artillery according to its main purpose, right? Elimination of personnel in huge numbers. That's what we lacked in the beginning.
And so with that, I hope that does address that comment fairly well. And we are on to the next one.
And also shout out to Blackhawk NZ for putting in a $50 NZ donation. That's New Zealand something.
Dollars.
Do you know, Enforcer? Oh, it's dollars?
Yeah, it's dollars. The Australians and New Zealanders use Australian and New Zealand dollars.
Interesting. I did not know that. But thank you very much, Blackhawk, for the generosity on that. We're somewhere in the neighborhood of 13,100 or something like that, I think. But anyways, moving on to our next question. We have one from Don and Edith, who says, please ask Starsky about women's soldiers. There seems to be a lot of women warriors. Is that common, and what roles do they play? Could it be infantry?
It definitely could be infantry. Of course, a lot of Ukrainian women in the army, they do all kinds of staff-related work, financial-related work. But of course, we have a lot of women on the front lines among snipers. We have a lot of them in the infantry as well. There are tankers, there are artillerists. So there's a lot of women volunteering to fight. And I see absolutely no reason to, not letting them do that, because women are amazing warriors. And I can say definitely that, for example, in my brigade, there's around 100 women officially employed.
And so that, I hope that answers that question fairly well. And I'm not sure, Matthew, but is this going to be the second to last question or the final question of the night?
So this is the second to last question of the night, and this one goes to Richard Parnell, who says, Operator Starsky, do you think that the video of the 101st in Romania was a deliberate leak to show the Russians that they are fully ready and willing to go? Zaporizhia nuclear power plant? Question mark.
What kind of video are we talking about? Because I think I didn't follow that.
We don't have a video.
I'm not really sure.
We don't have a video on this channel, but we do have a picture taken near the Romanian border of the 101st Airborne conducting some, I guess you could say, drills and exercises, just in case if they were to have to go into Ukraine. And according to, I believe, one of their press secretaries or press officers from the unit, they said that they were ready to go tonight if they were called into Ukraine.
Yeah. I think that it's logic that NATO units stationed close to Ukrainian border are trained and prepared to be rapidly deployed into the country in case it's needed. Because, again, we're talking about Russian terrorists led by insane dictator who can do all kinds of crazy crap. Yeah. In my opinion, the fastest way to stop this war is to bring NATO troops into Ukrainian territory, because even NATO troops not participating in combat but just stationed in Ukrainian cities is a guarantee for those cities not to be bombed and not to be hit by Russian missiles. It's like, maybe I'm naive, but it's my opinion on this.
And so with that, I hope we were able to answer that question fairly well. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, of course, everyone knows how I'm about to say it and what's about to be said. Who is the lucky last person who threw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is Edgy number 1, who says, Operator Starsky, do you agree that Troitsky is a target? I would love the Ukraine troops to take this town, destroy the rail track to the border. In fact, they should lift up all that track to the border.
Could be, on the other hand, if we are talking about the track that goes to this Avdiivsky railway hub, let's say, this hub is already under our artillery control and basically like physical control. The railway in the eastern part of Ukraine, the one that supplies Russians, basically we have our artillery control over wide span of the railway. The biggest problem is not the eastern railway, it's the southern railway. We're talking about the Kerch Bridge. By the way, guys, has the railway been restored? How do you think?
From what I've been able to tell, Starsky, of course, we were both talking about that the night of, and we did get some video showing that the damage to the rail bridge was extensive, but we have never gotten a follow-up video showing that the railroad bridge, has been fully repaired with trains running over it. We actually found out the video we showed that night, well, actually, the next night of a train running over it was from years ago, and we got more footage the next day showing that the railroad ties had literally melted into the bridge. So I don't know. We still have that entire railroad network marked in red as in inoperable. We may change the color to yellow based off of if we can get information on whether that's been fixed or not. But as far as I know, it's really unclear whether it was or wasn't.
Yeah, because, like, in my opinion, the oh my god, the motorway, the automobile part of this bridge is not, and I think that you will agree with me, it's not crucial for Russians. It's the railway, because railway is used to deliver all those supplies to Russian troops, and all of their logistics depend on the railway in the first place.
And that is true. The Russian armed forces, I believe, are the only military in the world that still uses the railroad to transport the bulk of their supplies, and then disseminates all of those supplies from the railheads and from the trains into the trucks for incredibly short, like 25 to 50 mile long drives. So unlike the U.S. or I guess you could say any other Western-based military in their doctrine that could use aircraft and trucks for the most part to transport all of these supplies, for the Russians, the railroad segment of that bridge was far more important. So once again, I have to say, I don't know the condition of that part, and so we still have it marked in red based off of the last information we had. And so with that, I think we addressed the last question of the night. And of course, I thank every single one of y'all so much for watching. Believe it or not, Matthew, we still have 5.7 thousand people watching the live stream right now at the very end of this question segment.
Wait a minute, how many?
5,700 people in our live audience right now watching the very end of this question segment.
Dang, it's like our retention near the end is starting to go really up.
It really is. It's kind of crazy. Also, another thing that probably helped out a lot, Matthew, is that this stream is about an hour shorter than normal, because the fundraiser streams the fundraiser streams are always about an hour shorter. But of course, I thank you all so much for watching, and believe it or not, but out of these 5,700 people watching, around 34 to 35% of y'all are unsubscribed. And so, if y'all would like, make sure to hit the subscribe.
We can't allow that.
We can't allow that. If you're watching this channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and also make sure to hit the bell button as well, so that way you can keep up to date with when these streams run. And once you get the schedule down, it's not too hard. These streams run every single day of the week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, except for Mondays. And so with that, I thank you all so much once again for coming. I thank Starsky for coming as well. And I thank all of y'all in the Lee Spring Army who have helped us to get to $13,000 raised on tonight's fundraiser. Y'all have been able to make this channel happen this long. For 243 days, y'all have supported these fundraisers and helped us to raise $573,000 in support of Ukraine. And y'all have also helped this channel to keep on running. And to those two regards, I thank every single one of y'all so much for y'all's kindness and y'all's care on this war and the attention that it deserves. And so with that, thank you all once again for watching, and I will see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours, the next 48 hours of the war in Ukraine. Good night, take care, and I'll see y'all all then. And of course, while we have a new anthem, we still have not figured out an outro anthem card, so we will be working on that, and hopefully we will have one by Tuesday night, although I'm kind of a little skeptical about that. But still, good night everyone, and take care. And of course, Slava Ukraini!